Greetings, adventurer, and welcome to the Elder Scrolls Library. My name is Aurelius, your lore master, and today we are reading and discussing 2920 Morning Star, which appears in 4 of the Elder Scrolls games: Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, and Elder Scrolls Online. This book is the first in a 12-part historical fiction series about the final year of the First Era. Let's get into 2920 Morning Star. Morning Star, Book 1 of 2920, The Last Year of the First Era, by Karlovac Townway. First of Morning Star, 2920, Mournhold, Morrowind. Almalexia lay in her bed of fur, dreaming. Not until the sun burned through her window, infusing the light wood and flesh colors of her chambers with a milky glow, did she open her eyes. It was quiet and serene, a stunning reverse of the flavor of her dreams, so full of blood and celebration. For a few moments, she simply stared at the ceiling, trying to sort through her visions. In the courtyard of her palace was a boiling pool which steamed in the coolness of the winter morning. At the wave of her hand, it cleared, and she saw the face and form of her lover, Vivek, in his study to the north. She did not want to speak right away. He looked so handsome in his dark red robes, writing his poetry as he did every morning. "Vivek," she said, and he raised his head in a smile, looking at her face across thousands of miles. "I have seen a vision at the end of the war. After 80 years, I don't think anyone can imagine an end," said Vivek with a smile. But he grew serious, trusting Almalexia's prophecies. "Who will win, Morrowind or the Cyrodiilic Empire?" "Without Sothistill in Morrowind, we will lose," she replied. "My intelligence tells me the Empire will strike us to the north in early springtide, by first seed at the latest. Could you go to Artaeum and convince him to return?" "I'll leave today," she said simply. 4th of Morningstar, 2920, Gideon, Blackmarsh. The Empress paced around her cell. Wintertide gave her wasteful energy, while in the summer she would merely sit by her window and be grateful for each breath of stale swamp wind that came to cool her. Across the room, her unfinished tapestry of a dance at the Imperial Court seemed to mock her. She ripped it from its frame, tearing the pieces apart as they drifted to the floor. Then she laughed at her own useless gesture of defiance. She would have plenty of time to repair it and craft 100 more. The Emperor had locked her up in Castle Gioves 7 years ago, and would likely keep her here until he or she died. With a sigh, she pulled the cord to call her knight, Zook. He appeared at the door within minutes, fully uniformed as befitted an Imperial guard. Most of the native Kathringi tribesmen of Blackmarsh preferred to go about naked, but Zook had taken a positive delight to fashion. His silver, reflective skin was scarcely visible, only on his face, neck, and hands. "Your Imperial Highness," he said with a bow. "Zook," said the Empress Tavia, "I'm bored. Let's discuss methods of assassinating my husband today." 14th of Morningstar, 2920, the Imperial City, Cyrodiil. The chimes proclaiming Southwind's prayer echoed through the wide boulevards and gardens of the Imperial City, calling all to their temples. The Emperor, Riemann III, always attended a service at the Temple of the One, while his son and heir, Prince Julek, found it more political to attend a service at a different temple for each religious holiday. This year, it was at the Cathedral Benevolence of Mara. The Benevolence's services were mercifully short, but it was not until well after noon that the Emperor was able to return to the palace. By then, the arena combatants were impatiently waiting for the start of the ceremony. The crowd was far less restless, as the potentate Versiliu Shai had arranged for a demonstration from a troupe of Khajiit acrobats. "Your religion is so much more convenient than mine," said the Emperor to his potentate by way of an apology. "What is the first game?" "A one-on-one battle between 2 able warriors," said the potentate, his scaly skin catching the sun as he rose, "armed befitting their culture." "Sounds good," said the Emperor, and clapped his hands. "Let the sport commence." As soon as he saw the two warriors enter the arena to the roar of the crowd, Emperor Riemann III remembered that he had agreed to this several months before and forgotten about it. One combatant was the potentate's son, Severian Korak, a glistening ivory-yellow eel, gripping his katana and wakizashi with his thin, deceptively weak-looking arms. The other was the emperor's son, Prince Julek, in ebony armor with a savage orcish helm, shield, and longsword at his side. "This will be fascinating to watch," hissed the potentate, a wide grin across his narrow face. "I don't know if I've seen a Cyrodiil fight in an Akavir like this. Usually, it's army against army. At last, we can settle which philosophy is better, to create armor to combat swords as your people do, or to create swords to combat armor, as mine do." No one in the crowd, aside from a few scattered Akaviri counselors and the potentate himself, wanted Severian Korak to win, but there was a collective intake of breath at the sight of his graceful movements. His sword seemed to be a part of him, a tail coming from his arm to match the one behind him. It was a trick of counterbalance, allowing the young serpent man to roll up into a circle and spin into the center of the ring in offensive position. The prince had to plod forward, the less impressive traditional way. As they sprang at each other, the crowd bellowed with delight. The Akaviri was like a moon in orbit around the prince, effortlessly springing over his shoulders to attempt a blow from behind, but the prince whirled around and quickly blocked with his shield. His counterstrike met only air as his foe fell flat to the ground and slithered between his legs, tripping him. The prince fell to the ground with a resounding crash. Metal and air melted together as Severian Korak rained strike after strike upon the prince, who blocked every one with his shield. "We don't have shields in our culture," murmured Versidue-Shai to the emperor. "It seems strange to my boy, I imagine. In our country, if you don't want to get hit, you move out of the way." When Severian Korak was rearing back to begin another series of blinding attacks, the prince kicked at his tail, sending him falling back momentarily. In an instant, he had rebounded, but the prince was also back on his feet. The two circled one another until the snake man spun forward, katana extended. The prince saw his foe's plan and blocked the katana with his longsword and the wakizashi with his shield. Its short, punching blade impaled itself in the metal, and Severian Korak was thrown off balance. The prince's long blade slashed across the Akavir's chest, and the sudden, intense pain caused him to drop both his weapons. In a moment, it was over. Severian Korak was prostrate in the dust with the prince's longsword at his throat. "The game is over," shouted the emperor, barely heard over the applause from the stadium. The prince grinned and helped Severian Korak up and over to a healer. The emperor clapped his potentate on the back, feeling relieved. He had not realized when the fight had begun how little chance he had given his son at victory. "He will make a fine warrior," said Versidue-Shai, "and a great emperor." "Just remember," laughed the emperor, "you Akaviri have a lot of showy moves, but if just one of our strikes comes through, it's all over for you." "Oh, I'll remember that," nodded the potentate. Riemann thought about the comment for the rest of the games and had trouble fully enjoying himself. Could the potentate be another enemy, just as the empress had turned out to be? The matter would bear watching. 21st of Morning Star, 2920, Mournhold, Morrowind. "Why don't you wear that green gown I gave you?" asked the Duke of Mournhold, watching the young maiden put on her clothes. "It doesn't fit," smiled Tirala, "and you know I like red." "It doesn't fit you because you're getting fat," laughed the Duke, pulling her down on the bed, kissing her breasts and the pouch of her stomach. She laughed at the tickles, but pulled herself up, wrapping her red robe around her. "I'm round like a woman should be," said Tirala. "Will I see you tomorrow?" "No," said the Duke. "I must entertain Vivek tomorrow, and the next day the Duke of Ebonheart is coming. Do you know, I never really appreciated Almalexia and her political skills until she left." "It is the same with me," smiled Tirala. "You will only appreciate me when I'm gone." "That's not true at all," snorted the Duke. "I appreciate you now." Tarala allowed the Duke one last kiss before she was out the door. She kept thinking about what he said. Would he appreciate her more or less when he knew that she was getting fat because she was carrying his child? Would he appreciate her enough to marry her? The year continues in Sun's dawn. And there we are, the first of 12 done. We bounce around a little bit, but we get a good idea of where we are and what's going on, at least in the first month of the year. For those that may not know, Morningstar is the first month of the year. That's why there are 12 books in the series, one for each month. The first event is at Mournhold in Morrowind, on the 1st of Morningstar. We have Almalexia waking and speaking with Vivek. Almalexia's visions tell her that without Sotha Sil in Morrowind, they will lose the war they are currently fighting. The war at the time was the Fourscore War, which had been going on since 1E 2840. Almalexia agrees to go to Artaeum to try and convince Sotha Sil to return. Almalexia, Vivek, and Sotha Sil are of course the Tribunal, the three living gods of the Dunmer in Morrowind. Artaeum, where Sotha Sil is the island of Artaeum, the third largest island in the Somerset Isles. There was a place on the island called the Dreaming Cavern, which Sotha Sil used as some kind of portal to the realms of oblivion. For the second event in the book, we go to Gideon in Blackmarsh. Gideon is one of the 8 main cities and is located in the central west area of Blackmarsh. Here we find Empress Tavia, who has been imprisoned by the Emperor, talking about assassinating him. Tavia had been imprisoned for plotting to overthrow the Emperor after the birth of her son, Julek. The third event, we find Emperor Riemann III coming back from chapel at the Temple of the One to attend a series of games and other events with his chief advisor, Potentate Versitu Shai. I don't know how he was talked into it, but until it happens, the Emperor forgets that he was talked into allowing his son Julek and the son of Versitu Shai, Severian Korak, to fight each other in the first round of the games. The Emperor begins to suspect that Versitu Shai and his son are actively trying to kill Julek and are a threat to the throne. If you know anything about this story, it only gets worse from here. But Julek wins the fight, his time has not yet come. The fourth and final event we see takes us back to Mournhold in Morrowind. We see the Duke of Mournhold and his mistress, Tarala, bantering in the morning. Once the Duke leaves, we the reader learn that Tarala is pregnant, and she wonders what this might mean for her relationship with the Duke. And there we are, off to a good start, and we will continue with the next book in the series next Friday. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me what you think about this book in the comments below. And may the blessings of the 8 Divines be upon you.